This is News Scene 15 with Rick Featherston reporting the news, Elmer Childress with the weather, and Paul Brown with sports.
Good evening. Rick has the night off. Our lead story tonight is about the McFarland man who needs a new heart, Jimmy Ryan. We've heard a lot about Ryan lately, but not many people have been able to see him because he's at a Minneapolis hospital. Well, News Scene's Jim Fox has spent the past 2 days in Minneapolis, and tonight begins an exclusive three-part series on Jimmy Ryan's fight for life.
How are you feeling today, Jim?
Terrific.
Good. Good job.
Jimmy Ryan looks very well for someone who is critically ill. That's how his wife Shirley puts it. It's true, Jimmy Ryan is a sick man. He has an irreversible disease which destroys the heart muscle. His doctors think it was probably caused by a virus. Jimmy Ryan needs a heart transplant. It's his only hope for survival. Such an operation is expensive, at least $100,000. Most of that is already taken care of thanks to his friends and the community. So now Jimmy Ryan and his doctors wait here in Minneapolis for a compatible heart. That heart could become available at any moment, and when it does, it becomes a race against time.
We have about a 3-hour period during which we have to get the heart out of the donor, fly it back here, and have it sewn into the recipient and receiving blood. If you go over 3 or 3.5 hours, you have to begin to worry about whether the heart will function.
Jimmy Ryan is young, relatively strong. He's a good candidate for a heart transplant, and he's determined to win the battle against heart disease.
There's times when you feel completely lost and down, and the help that I get from not only my wife, but from the people who, in this hospital in particular, the nurses, professional people who come in, and they relieve a lot of fears. And that was the important thing to me. A couple of weeks ago, I was just, I thought I'd bought it. And they said, no, you got a great chance, and don't give up. Just stay in there pitching, and that's what I plan to do.
Jim Fox, News Scene 15 at the University of Minnesota Heart Hospital in Minneapolis.
Tomorrow night, Jim will have a report on how this whole ordeal has changed the lives of Jimmy Ryan, his family, and their friends. Jimmy Ryan continues to wait at this hour at a Minneapolis hospital for the heart transplant that could save his life. This whole ordeal has changed the life of the McFarland man and his family, as we see in part 2 of our exclusive series by News Scene's Jim Fox.
It's become a regular daily routine for Shirley Ryan, checking in with doctors on Heart 2, the second floor of the University of Minnesota Heart Hospital. Then it's on to her husband's room. This building has become more familiar to Shirley and Jimmy Ryan than their house back in Wisconsin. This is where they wait for news of the heart that could save Jimmy's life. It's not exactly a solitary wait. Jimmy's many friends keep in touch, and there's understanding companionship within Ryan's own room. 14-year-old Brad Westenberg of Rosendale and his mom, Beverly. Brad also has a heart disease, also needs a transplant. Jimmy and Shirley Ryan are good people for Brad to be with. They have become well-versed on the subject of transplants. At the same time, this painful experience has brought them closer together.
There has to be something good coming out of everything bad, and Jim and I have had a lot of precious moments, I guess, what I would consider precious moments up here where you just don't realize and take the time to express your emotions a great deal to each other.
I think not only has it brought Shirley and I closer together, it's also made it appreciate the fact of our family and our home and our friends and just everything in general is a little bit clearer now than it was before. Most people just kind of walk through life and don't look around to really pay much attention to what's going on around them. And something like this really snaps you awake.
Jim Fox, News Scene 15, with the Ryan family at the University of Minnesota Heart Hospital.
And tomorrow night in the final series segment, Jim will report on the high cost of the heart transplant operation, all the fundraising efforts in our area to help pay for it, and how the Ryans react to all the help that they've received. More than $82,000. That's how much money has been raised so far for the heart transplant McFarland native Jimmy Ryan needs to survive. Jim Fox is here with the final segment of his three-part series. Jim?
That's right, Dave. So far in this series, we've talked about why Jimmy Ryan needs a heart transplant and why the surgery costs so much. Now we turn to fundraising. $82,000 is a lot of money. Tonight we take a look at how so much has been raised so quickly and how the Ryan family reacts.
He also had, just as Jim does.
We first heard about Jimmy Ryan July 12th. Jimmy's wife Shirley showed an x-ray of her husband's diseased heart and pleaded for help. The southern Wisconsin area responded with benefits, games, even Kool-Aid stands. And it's all for this, a new heart to replace Jimmy Ryan's faulty one. They're keeping a close watch on Jimmy Ryan right now at the University of Minnesota Heart Hospital. He's passed all the tests and is a suitable heart recipient. So while he and his wife worry about when a donor heart will become available, they don't worry much about money. They still need more for the whole operation, but have enough to be placed on the transplant list. To say they are grateful for the help is to make a vast understatement.
Well, my first reaction is that how do you thank somebody for your life? You know, and that's basically what the money's going to do. It's going to save my life, and I really am dumbfounded by the response. It's been overwhelming.
All that we can think of doing is just having Jim, you know, being able to walk into a TV station or something after he has his transplant, and I guess that's how he's going to be able to show his appreciation, by just the determination that he has, that he's going to fight this thing and beat it.
When I left town on Monday or Tuesday, a couple of them would come to see me the night before, and they said, "You don't worry." And it's come true.
That's quite a man, Dave, and he's obviously got some people behind him.
The fundraising isn't over yet, though, is it?
No, I've got three things to mention. The West Madison Little League will be going door to door tomorrow. The McFarland Service Clubs are holding a banquet Sunday, and there's going to be a softball tournament for them next week.
And we hope a lot of people go out there for all of that. Thank you, Jim.
You bet.
Jim Ryan's friends describe him as a family man, a good softball pitcher, and a hard worker. But this picture of Jim Ryan's heart shows something different. Ryan has a fatal disease and needs a heart transplant to survive. His doctor says that Jim is the perfect candidate for the operation.
He's young, his age is under 50. He's been a very hard-working man. He's been very remarkable in that he's continued to work full-time until just very recently, despite a very serious cardiac illness.
The operation will cost about $100,000 and isn't covered by medical insurance, so Mrs. Ryan is asking the community for help. Her husband is at a Minnesota hospital waiting for a donor, but the hospital won't do the transplant without the money. Mrs. Ryan says in spite of everything, Jim is in good spirits.
His attitude has been just extremely good throughout the whole, his illness. Has a lot to fight for, and his spirits, and I know, has been pretty much what's pulled him through this whole thing this last week and a half.
Jim Ryan has lived and worked in Madison for 41 years. Now he's asking his hometown for help. Contributions can be sent to the Jim Ryan Heart Fund, care of the Randall Bank, 1720 Monroe Street, Madison, 53711. Kathy Hansen, News Scene 15. "41-year-old Jim Ryan is now undergoing tests to see if he's still strong enough to have a heart transplant. Once the results are in, the search for a donor can begin. A friend of Ryan's has kept in close touch with him.
And Jim was in very good spirits. He's not in intensive care anymore. And it looks like he's going to start the testing, or should have started the testing today for the heart transplant.
What does that mean then, that testing?
It means that after approximately 10 days that if a heart becomes available and if we have the money, that they will proceed with the operation.
Do you think you're going to get that money?
We're going to do it by the end of the month.
Since mid-July, checks have been pouring in to help Ryan pay for the operation. His insurance doesn't cover the $100,000 cost of the surgery. So far, the community has raised $35,000. Starting Sunday, though, Imhoff says several large fundraisers will be held to help Ryan reach his goal. Mrs. Ryan told us she'll be returning from Minneapolis this weekend to help with the fundraising. She says Jim remains optimistic despite the wait for a new heart. If the tests work out and a suitable donor is found, and if the community can raise the necessary money, Jimmy Ryan could have a new heart by the end of this month. Kathy Hansen, News Scene 15.
Everybody can see a little bit of themselves in Jimmy with the problems that he's having in raising this money and not having any insurance to cover it. So I think that they want to get behind us because maybe that they can see that someday that maybe a friend or relative of theirs might have this similar situation.
Tomorrow morning, a McFarland man is transferring from a Madison to a Minnesota hospital in a fight to save his life. That move, besides crucial, is expensive. And as News 3's Terry Bertha reports, the family can't make it alone.
Jim Ryan is a lifetime Madison area resident, a family man, and a desperate patient. Ryan is in Madison's Methodist Hospital tonight, where he's being treated for cardiomyopathy, a muscle disease which weakens the heart. His only hope is a transplant.
The rate, what we have been told, is 80% of transplants at least live 1 year.
For a chance at that year, the Ryans need $100,000. That's how much the Minnesota hospital wants up front for the transplant. The Ryans don't have that kind of money, and insurance doesn't cover it, so they're asking for help.
I don't like to have to do it, but I have no other means of doing it other than asking the community for all the help that they can give us. Because it may mean that if I can't come up with the money, it may mean that he may not be able to have the transplant.
The Ryans are asking the community to send money to the Randall Bank in Madison. Checks in Jim's name will be put in a fund to help pay for his treatment.
And unfortunately, if there isn't the money, it's not going to be possible. And if he doesn't have the transplant, he won't live. That's unquestionable.
Terry Bertha, News 3.
Jim Ryan is...
The Ryans are lifetime area residents. They've done a lot for the community, and now they have a favor to ask. You see, Mr. Ryan needs a heart transplant, and the family needs some money. But asking isn't easy.
I don't like to have to do it, but I have no other means of doing it other than asking the community for all the help that they can give us. Because it may mean that if I can't come up with the money, it may mean that he may not be able to have the transplant.
The heart transplant is his only hope.
It's a terminal type thing with him, and unless he has the transplant, he would not survive.
Ryan has cardiomyopathy, the disease Barney Clark had. It makes the heart enlarge and thicken until it doesn't pump properly. Tomorrow morning, Ryan will fly to Minnesota for testing. Aside from money, time is becoming an element to beat, especially since last week's scare when his heart stopped.
Could be any time that he could die. He could die at any time. Which is why we really want to act quickly.
The Ryans are asking the community to send money to the Randall Bank at 1720 Monroe Street in Madison. The bank has set up a trust fund in Jim Ryan's name. Checks received will be used to pay for the $100,000 down payment for his transplant. Terry Bertha, News 3.
So this is what a normal
This is a healthy heart. Its rhythmic pumping maintains the body's circulation. This is Jim Ryan's heart. He has a disease which weakens the heart's muscle and pumping action. Because of the extent of the weakening, Ryan needs a heart transplant.
By that, we're talking probably 6 to 12 months survival without a transplant.
That prognosis is based on statistics. Doctors say that without surgery, Ryan has a 20% chance of living 1 year. With the transplant, his chances rise to 80% for the next year and 60% looking down the road. Before the transplant is possible, the Minnesota hospital wants $100,000 up front. That's a lot of money for a small family, so they're asking for help.
I have no other means of doing it other than asking the community for all the help that they can give us. We're a young family, and I don't think that most young families, would plan for such an expense to hit them as hard as what it's hit us.
To make the impact harder, even if the money is raised, the family still needs a donor.
The patient receives a heart only when some tragic accident occurs and provides one, and so there may be a substantial waiting period for him. And if there is a substantial waiting period, that only serves to increase the expense.
Since word of the Ryans' plight has spread, people have already started helping. The Randall Bank at 1720 Monroe reports that about $400 came in today for their Jim Ryan Trust Fund, and they're expecting lots more. Terry Bertha, News 3.
They don't even blink an eye at the $35,000. They're looking more for at their $100,000, upfront payment that they're requiring for the transplant.
You can't read it anymore. You say rock and roll.
As of Friday, we were at $40,000. We expect to raise between $15,000 and $20,000 this weekend. So by early week, we should be at $60,000, and we know we can reach that goal of $100,000 by the end of the month.
There's a lot of oldsters out there who don't want to go back to school either. Edition of the 1,000th limited edition of the Madison Skyline pictures in dedication of this fundraiser and as a tribute to you and to this great community. Thank you. And the third being the Madison chapter
which
of
combines
the
a couple of things that is important to the city itself and its sense of itself and its sense of how we take care of our own and how we help out people that have sails on occasion and gets this view of the lake frequently, and it has I guess the back of this office is in the picture.